It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed, and great to have you with us on this Wednesday edition of the show. We'll get to some baseball coming up in about 20 minutes. Some college football to talk about. Some veterans in sports. A couple of 45-year-olds making me proud. We'll talk about that a little later on in Odds and Ends. But we start things out in the National Football League, and to do that, we bring in our good friend, longtime NFL writer, Hall of Fame selector, author, Jason Cole, hangs out with us on the show today to talk about the NFL. And I want to start with a couple of guys that are holding out right now from training camp, and Trey Hendrickson and Terry McLaurin. Of those two that I bring up, which one would be the most concerning? Which team should be the most concerned with the holdout?
Ooh, I mean that's tough.
So you think they're both? Really... So you think they're both really bad news?
Yeah, because I mean I think you can survive McLaurin by divvying it out a little bit more in Washington.
Do you think it stretches? But you think this really stretches that long?
No, they pay him. The market for wide receivers is no, and it's a team that wants to play, and they won last year. The other one is run by Mike Brown, so it's nonsensical. It's a power trip. So, but there's no replacement for Hendrickson. There's none on that roster. They can't cover it up. They don't have stars on the defensive side. They were an abomination last year on defense. You have to have that guy. So I think it's a little easier to replace McLaurin, but not a lot. I mean, that Washington made its biggest strides on offense. And you've got a young quarterback who the league is going to figure out a little bit, and you need to make sure he has all of his weapons.
Yeah, and I'm of the same mindset. I think Daniels comes back to earth a little bit. Some of those wild throws he made last year that are being completed. It's the C.J. Stroud effect. C.J. Stroud was so great in his rookie year.
It's every young quarterback who has a bbig year. People come back. RG3 was the same. I know that it was a knee injury, but they figured him out. Then who was it? Mahomes came back, had the big first year. They figured it out eventually, and he wasn't going to throw it. Dan Marino threw 48 touchdown passes in his second year. He never did that again. I mean, he was still a great player. So don't get me wrong. It's not to say that they're not great players, but the things that they did that they took advantage of that particular year are hard to repeat.
Do you think the Hendrickson situation risks playing out longer than McLaurin?
Yeah, because again, it's Mike Brown. Mike Brown is steadfast in his lack of understanding how you build a football team, which is amazing given that his dad was Paul Brown. But steadfast in worrying about money. Here's my question, and this is not about Hendrickson, it's about the second-round pick. Why would you draft a guy in the second round who you're afraid is going to get arrested? Right? Why is that if he's such a risk to get arrested that you took him in the second round, the problem is not the kid, the problem is you. You shouldn't have drafted him if that is what your concern is. It's not to say that first round picks and second round picks can't get arrested and can't get in trouble. I mean, we've seen plenty of guys get in trouble, get arrested. But if he has that kind of past that makes you worry about him, he shouldn't have been on your board. And if you take him, you have to play the game of what does the pick deserve now, and how do they work it out? It can't be this kind of situation where it's it's your way or the highway, and you're talking about him getting arrested.
I'm based in Vegas, and I don't normally make it about Vegas, but I will for a moment just because we have the Raiders here. And it almost feels like the mentality with this franchise, with bringing in Pete Carroll and bringing in Geno Smith and reuniting those two, and now you hear they're bringing in Jamal Adams. to come in and be a DB. It almost feels like the mentality in Las Vegas, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is they're just throwing a bunch of stuff together here and hoping that it works out, just hoping for the best. I'm having a hard time figuring out the long-term strategy with an older coach like Pete Carroll, Geno Smith being brought in, a veteran quarterback, certainly closer to the end of his career than the beginning of it. I'm trying to figure out what the Raiders are doing.
Let me know when you find out.
So I'm not crazy.
No, you're not crazy. Look, the Raiders haven't had a plan that they've stuck with in the entire era of Mark Davis, and they really didn't have a plan that they stuck with Al after the last Super Bowl they got. That's why they have been horrible for 25 years. You know, this is not a good it's not a well-run franchise. They don't have a philosophy. They change their philosophy every single time they change coaches, and they change coaches way too often. So I don't know what they're doing. You know, this is not what I would have built. You know, Pete Carroll, I like Pete Carroll, but this was not the situation I would hire him to. I would have hired him, you know, to a situation where I got a ready-made football team that I'm trying to win with right now. You know, not one that is at best the third best team in the division. At best, right? That would, like, there's just no way I would do that.
By the way, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think Geno Smith is fine. I think Pete Carroll's fine. I think Jamal Adams hasn't played well in 4 years. I think they got, you know, some other guys. Yeah, that's not to say Jamal Adams can't play well, but he hasn't played well, right? So I just don't know I don't know what their strategy is either. I do know that they probably didn't like the quarterbacks who were in this draft. They, you know, this is the penance you pay for missing on Michael Penix, you know, no pun intended. But when you didn't get the guy that you needed to get the year before, you sometimes screw it up and have to wait for the guy that you really want to come around.
Yeah. I see what you mean. We're hanging out with Jason Cole, Hall of Fame selector, NFL writer, author. I got one more segment with you because I have to ask you about this NFLPA situation as somebody who's been around the league a long time and sort of the direction all of this is going. Jason, I know. Jason Cole with us. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to do on this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap. We're just getting started. Welcome back this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap. We'll get to some baseball coming up in 10 minutes. The Dodgers are a mess. And they're still 3.5 games clear of anybody in the National League West, which just goes to show you how big of a lead they had and how the rest of the division is playing. Continuing the conversation with Jason Cole, longtime NFL writer, author, Hall of Fame selector, who hangs out with us on the show. His book is behind me, somewhere in the studio. Shut Up, Your Kid Is Not That Great. It is over my shoulder, but you can't really see it because I'm kind of hiding it. But it is in here. I'll grab it at some point. Okay. So let's talk about this NFLPA situation. What was your reaction?
First of all, just know that I'm a Dodgers fan.
I'm sorry.
So be careful here.
Yeah. Hey, listen, they're still in first place. They're still the favorite.
We're still champions, pal. Still
favorites to win the whole thing too, according to Vegas. Right. So, and you know what? It's not how you're playing now. It's how you're playing in October. So I want to get your thoughts on sort of this NFLPA situation. What was your reaction when you saw the Lloyd Howell news and then J.C. Tretter, the fallout from that, and sort of just the state of chaos that it feels like the NFLPA is in right now?
Well, this is a culmination of 17 years of bad decisions. It's a culmination of hiring D. Smith, who was bad at his job, and then hiring another guy who was worse. It's a culmination of people like J.C. Tretter who pretend that they understand how unions are supposed to work and finance and all those other things, and don't have a clue. I mean, like, seriously, don't have any clue. about how this is supposed to operate. I'm really sad for the union that's gotten to this point, but it's a chance for them to really take a deep dive and look at what do they need to do. And I would always just come back to this if I was talking to a player, because they're always trying to reinvent this, say we need an executive, we need a guy who knows how to negotiate and all this. Gene Upshaw was a former player, Hall of Fame player, was the best executive director they've ever had. Did a phenomenal job of I'm not saying that every single thing that Gene did was great, but he did a phenomenal job of evening the playing field as much as you humanly could, given the leverage that the football players generally don't have. So look back, you need a player who understands your game and understands the business of football. And I always say, who does the NFL hire to run the league? Who's the commissioner? Go back, Roger Goodell, Paul Tagliabue, Pete Rozelle, Bert Bell before that, one other guy, I can't remember the first official commissioner, but in 100 years, they've had 5 guys. Every single one of those guys worked in the NFL before they got the job. They understood the business of football. And it's a particular business, it's a specialized business. They need to have people who understand the business of football, not just general business, but the business of football.
Is there a name that makes sense that that you're hearing about amongst people you talk to? I mean, is there somebody that's just a logical pick that fits the criteria you're talking about?
Look, I'm very close to Matt Schaub, who I think threw his name into the ring last time. Played 17 years, has that leadership ability as a former quarterback, smart guy, honest, transparent. Dominique Foxworth, former president of the NFLPA, I have a lot of respect for, smart guy, had the balls to stand up to the owners in 2011 when they were trying to force them to play 18 games way back then. He's got chutzpah. There are other guys like that. But I really do come back to, give me a player who really knows the business, and then also, most importantly, come up with a real plan to get leverage. There's not very many ways to do it, but it can be done. It's very hard, and you have to sell the players on it. And the only way to sell the players is with a guy who knows their business. D. Smith could never talk to the players. He couldn't sell the players on an idea. That's why you could barely get the CBA done in 2020. And Lloyd Howell, I mean, that was just a crap show.
Yeah. And it's just amazing it got to the point that it did, where he actually almost wound up with the job, or did wind up with the job, before all of this stuff started to roll downhill. And obviously we see the culmination of that. Question about NFL from a media perspective. We're seeing this story today about ESPN jumping in, and there had been a lot of talk about them buying NFL media, and now it's talk about them buying, NFL Network and the Red Zone. What does all of this mean in the long run for the way the league gets covered?
Well, it's ESPN realizing that they're in trouble if they don't have a partnership with the league in terms of what the rights fees are going to look like in 2030 when they renew the next set deal. So they kind of have to get in bed with the league at that point in time. And this is the venture. This is what they believe is going to be the solution for them and their way that they keep their business alive. I don't know that they're right, but I do know that they're desperate. And I do know that, you've got Amazon sitting there, you've got Apple sitting there, you've got other streaming services who are going to want to get involved. Google, obviously. I mean, what we know is media and football. What we grew up on is about to just be gone.
Well, because the way I think about it is too, it's what kind of credible coverage are you going to get of the league that it isn't just that ESPN isn't just going to be a complete propaganda arm for the league? What kind of real coverage are you going to get?
But who's not? I mean, Fox admits that they're a propaganda arm for the NFL. CBS doesn't have any hardcore coverage of the NFL. NBC,
Florio. I mean, Florio's,
Florio may be the last of the Mohicans. He may end up being, and then some independent people you know, the Pablo Torres of the world, you know, Bill Simmons, if he has, you know, the chutzpah for it. You know, maybe a Dan Le Batard, but you're not going to have serious journalism about the NFL because they can shut it all down, and they consistently shut it all down. The Athletic, the Athletic might do it. New York Times has some standards, but not if they ever buy rights, and everybody's trying to buy rights.
Yeah, and I think it's everybody's going to look at it through a different prism, but as a former journalist myself, and speaking to somebody such as yourself that was a journalist for so long, it's I don't know. I think it spells dark days for the way the league gets covered. Shut Up Your Kid Is Not That Great, by the way, is the book that is sitting in here.
That's Pulitzer material right there.
He's written bigger books. I gotta go. Thank you, Jason.
All right, dude.
Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap. We'll get back to the football in 10 minutes. Focus on quarterbacks. In particular, NFL quarterbacks in their sophomore year. But first, let's talk some baseball. We actually referenced this a little bit. I don't know if it was on yesterday's show or last week we talked about it. No, it couldn't have been last week because we were off. So that wouldn't have been last week. But Sam, I know you've talked about it some. Maybe the week before when we had our buddy David Ardsma on and we were talking about the Dodgers just sort of being in shambles. And I said, I would love to be the shambles that are the Dodgers when you still have dropped 11 of 14, 7 of your last 10. You got swept by the Brewers. You lose again last night, and you're still in first place, which just goes to show you how big of a lead they had in the National League West. That lead is still 3.5 games, Sam, and it's the injuries that just keep catching up with this team, Tanner Scott being the latest. I got to think the Dodgers are going to be extremely busy here at the trade deadline.
Interesting. That's something that I hadn't really thought about, Jason, but you hit the nail on the head with, I think any of the 30 team or 29 other teams' fan bases would kill to be in the position the Dodgers are in. I mean, every time we talk about this franchise, since we started talking about them in like February, it's quite literally the murderer's row New York Yankees reincarnated on the other side of the country. You mix. Think about all of the things that have gone wrong for this team this season. Outside of Clayton Kershaw being, predictably like mediocre at best and really just hunting the milestones at this point. It's a pitching staff that hasn't lived up to expectation. Yoshinobu Yamamoto hasn't been in that Zach Wheeler, Paul Skeens conversation that we were very happy to put him in before the season started, right? Since Shohei Ohtani started pitching again, the hitting has not been the same for him. And granted, that will eventually catch up. I think everybody can agree upon that. However, it's not right now. And that's what we're talking about, right? The great month of Max Muncy seems to be over. The horrible 2 months of Freddie Freeman continues, and now Mookie Betts also seems to be a broken baseball player. Every single thing that could possibly go wrong for the Los Angeles Dodgers has gone wrong, and like you said, they still have a 3-game lead in the division, and it's never really been a nervous feeling. It's never really been here come the Padres. This is the run the Padres have been looking for. No, instead, down whatever highway that is in your former home state, they're talking about, should we trade Fernando Tatis? Think about the return package we could get back for him. It is absolutely wild where things have ended up in the NL West after it was through the first month of the season, and maybe even still comfortably top to bottom, the best division in baseball.
It just goes to show you how perspective is everything, because there's 60 games. By the way, it's the 5 freeway. It just goes to show you how perspective is everything, though, because there's 60 games left in the regular season. And if I gave any other team in baseball, virtually any other team in baseball, maybe other than the Yankees, if I gave any other fan base in baseball the option of being 60 games out from the finish line and have a 3.5 game lead in their division with the roster that the Dodgers have assembled, you'd instantly sign up, and instead they're booing the Dodgers off the field right now in Los Angeles after their latest loss. It really is remarkable what's going on there, Sam.
I'm trying to think back to another time when we saw a team, and like maybe it was the Phillies of the late 2000s and early into the very early 2010s, when that team was just loaded, had the best pitching staff in baseball year in, year out, would sign the biggest name free agents, would go to the World Series seemingly every year for a 5-year stretch. There was probably a contingent of the Philly fan base at some point near the end of it that booed him off the field. But you know, it's still not comparable to this. The Dodgers, after all this, after all these things, with all these things having gone wrong, are plus 230 to win the World Series. The next closest favorite is plus 750. It's ridiculous, Jason.
Tigers and Yankees are both plus 750. And then the Astros at 10-1, along with the Phillies at 10-1, and then the Cubs and Mets at 12-1, followed by the Brewers at 17-1, despite the fact the Brewers are playing some of the best baseball in the bigs right now. It is, and I don't even know where to go. Like, if you told me right now, if somebody came up to me with their money and said, "Hey, I've got $1,000. Where should I put my MLB futures money on the World Series right now?" I got to be honest with you. I don't have a lot of confidence, and I don't know if this speaks to parity or if it speaks to just the slush of mediocrity that it feels like we have at the top of baseball this year. I don't have one, Sam. If somebody comes to me right now with that $1,000 and says, "Where should I put it?" I don't feel like I can give them sage advice on where to go with it.
The only advice that I would give right now, if you were looking to bet something in terms of the World Series, is a bet that I made last year at much better juice. You have to lay minus 152 for it right now, but it's the National League to win. I mean, look at the interleague series this year. The National League, look at the top of the National League against the top of the American League. It's quite literally, no pun intended, different leagues. The National League is just so much more talented. If the Dodgers don't make it out, I'm confident that the Phillies or Cubs or whoever it may be coming out of the National League will be able to handle even the Tigers or the Astros or the Yankees on their best day.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to go with a team like the Tigers, and if somebody asks me, well, what about the Tigers? I'm like, well, have they done it? How do you feel about the Tigers? The Yankees? No. They are a fundamentally flawed baseball team.
Well, and we know what'll happen to Aaron Judge the second the calendar turns over to October. He'll become a pumpkin.
Don't say it. I got to be honest. If you want to sell me on something, it might be the Astros, just because they have the pedigree. Honestly, if I was gonna, especially at 10-1. If I was going to go lay my money down right now, it might be on the Astros, Sam.
I got a better one for you.
Don't say the Brewers.
This is a pure vibe. Okay. This is a vibes $1,000 that you're giving me, and I'm just throwing it around willy-nilly.
No, see?
The Milwaukee Brewers at 17-1. Show me a team that's better equipped to win a playoff series than the Milwaukee Brewers.
And yet every time, and they always find ways to lose in the playoffs, though. Talk about Aaron Judge turning into a pumpkin. The Brewers as a team turn into a pumpkin every October, so I can't go with them either. I'm sorry, folks. If you were looking for sage betting advice, you didn't get any just now. It's the best I got for you. More NFL next. Thanks for being with us. Coming up in 10 minutes, we'll talk some college football. Media Days going on for the ACC and the Big Ten. I was out at the Mandalay Bay yesterday, chatting it up with some folks about college football, the business of college football. And that's what I want to talk about coming up in 10 minutes. How the business of college football is. And it's so funny because I had this conversation with somebody who covers sports business here in Las Vegas, which is a huge beat. It should be a huge beat because there's always something going on from a business perspective here in Las Vegas when it comes to sports, whether it's stadiums being built, F1, another new arena coming in. Are they going to get an NBA team? All these different things. So anyway, I was having a conversation with somebody about this topic that came up later in the day after I had already spoken about it with somebody. So we'll get into it coming up in about 10 minutes. Sam Yarnell, I want to talk NFL quarterbacks with you, sir. Year 2 quarterbacks. A lot of focus can obviously be on a couple of prominent rookies this year, but I want to talk about the year 2 guys. And which year 2 guy, in your opinion, I'll give you mine, needs to make the biggest leap in year 2 for their team to be successful. Now, there might be some obvious ones here. Some people might go with Caleb Williams, obviously in Chicago. Maybe that's your pick. We have not pre-discussed this. I'm coming at this totally blind with you. I could argue Bo Nix with Denver needs to make the biggest leap, though. And the reason I can make that argument is that team could compete to come out of the AFC if he makes the kind of quantum leap that I think they need him to make. That he played well last year, but they managed him. They put him in spots to succeed. If he takes the leap forward that people in Denver are talking about him potentially being able to make, they're raving about him right now at training camp. If he can make that leap in year 2, Sam, Denver could be a real threat out of the AFC.
Yeah, so there's a ton of smoke around the Denver Broncos going into this season, and I'm kind of as a bettor going into the NFL season, having done the vast majority of my research already, I'm kind of just hoping that people continue to do this and buy into the Broncos and think that they're going to go on this mystical run so that I can sell them right before the season starts at a wonderful price. And when we're in week 4 and they've started the season 1-3, that team is going to be struggling.
29-1 to win the Super Bowl, by the way, on the
and there are a ton of people in the industry who are like, oh, no one's going to see the Broncos coming this year. Well, here's why no one's going to see the Broncos coming this year, because there are multiple arguments that you could make that they're the 4th most talented team in that division. So I understand the Bo Nix thing. He was my answer, quite frankly, as well. I think Caleb Williams is a little bit too easy. And I also think for Caleb Williams specifically, the reason Bo Nix to me is the answer is because he's got less around him, less that he can rely on compared to Caleb Williams. I know that there's a great defense in Denver, not taking anything away from that. But Bo Nix is trotting out with Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and who knows at running back, not to mention tight end. Meanwhile, over in Chicago, you've got a new head coach who's the offensive coordinator, who's the 2-time reigning defending champion of that division, right? Not to mention a wide receiver in Moore, who's always kind of argues to be a top 16 guy in the NFL. And then, you've got 2 young studs in Rome Odunze, who you drafted last year, and Luther Burden, who you just drafted. There's a lot of offense. And in the backfield, DeAndre Swift needs no introduction, and Roshan Johnson, one of the most exciting young backs in the league. Obviously, you saw with what he and Bijan Robinson did at Texas. There is so much around Caleb Williams on that Chicago Bears team, a team that invested in the offensive line this year, a problem that they had last year. Caleb Williams really has everything around him going into year 2, Jason, whereas Bo Nix doesn't. He doesn't have that complement. Their offensive line's decent. It's not great. Sean Payton's on the other side of an analytically driven new era of coaching in the NFL. Bo Nix really needs to take that step if the Broncos want to remain at all competitive, approach a near 500 record.
I can't sell you on Evan Ingram on a prove-it contract. Can't sell you on Evan Ingram? No? RJ Harvey's not doing it for you? No?
Okay, so the RJ Harvey in the fantasy community is somebody that everybody seems to be very, very high on. And I get it. They used a lot of draft capital on him. I think they took him before Caleb Johnson got taken, who's going to end up starting for Pittsburgh. I don't think that RJ Harvey is being put in a great position to succeed organizationally when you're putting him into an offense that, when Bo Nix couldn't throw the ball last year, relied on running. That's going to be a lot harder to do with a rookie running back. But Jason, I'll say this, when you brought up the conversation, the thing that immediately came to my mind is a point I was making to somebody else in the industry the other day as we were breaking down our quarterback kind of rankings going into the season. And it's that you and I are not sitting here having this conversation from this angle if it's not for CJ Stroud's last season. And CJ Stroud drastically changed how we look at quarterbacks heading into their second year. Bad for quarterbacks.
Yeah. Well, I said he would come back down to earth in year 2, and he did. I was spot on with that. And I think there'll be some of that with Jaden Daniels too. I think there will be some regression. Teams get smart, they get film, they've got a full season now to work with. I still think they're a great team, but there will be some regression. Welcome back. Odds and Ends wraps it up in about 10 minutes here on the show. An ode to the veteran athlete. Venus Williams and Rich Hill. Talking about you. You. Sam Yarnell, let's talk some college football. I had a great conversation with a gentleman out here yesterday in Las Vegas at a place called the Slice of Las Vegas. It was a pizza restaurant. I didn't get anything free from them, by the way. I'm just saying it was good pizza. So I had lunch with a couple of guys out there yesterday, and one of them reports on the sports business of Las Vegas, and he was here covering Big Ten Media Day. And we were talking about the economics of college football and how the whole dynamic of locker rooms have changed as a result of NIL. How you have the haves and the have-nots. And we were talking about basically you could be a professional college football player now. You could stretch your eligibility and get 6 years out of college football and college sports in general, which is going to give you an opportunity to make some bank. Like, you could be a good college athlete and make bank even if you have no shot of really being much in the professional ranks. And as we were getting into this, I said, but it's going to create this haves and have-nots. You're going to have guys at the top of the roster, stars making a lot of money, and guys, who barely make the team that aren't making anything. And what kind of a dynamic does that create in the locker room? And then as we had that conversation, I came home last night and I see the comments from Mike Locksley, the Maryland football coach at ACC Football Media Day in Charlotte, where he's basically talking about how that dynamic crushed the locker room environment with the Terrapins program last year. For those that didn't get to hear it, here's Locksley in his own words.
Because I had to decide whether to pay a freshman coming in or take care of a veteran player that helped me go to 3 bowl games and have success and do something that hadn't been done in 130 years in the history of Maryland football. And it was hard to do both. And so what I've decided now is if you come to Maryland and you look outside of our locker room, there's a sign. And that sign reads, you can leave your Louis belts, your car keys, and your financial statements outside of this locker room, because when you enter those doors, we'll all pay the same price for success or failure.
Well, good luck with that, because you can preach that all you want. The reality is money changes everything. It changes it in relationships. It changes it in people. It's definitely going to change it with 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-olds in the collegiate ranks. And look, when Nick Saban walked away from Alabama, Nick Saban could still be a great head coach. Nick Saban didn't walk away because he wasn't a great coach anymore, or he wasn't going to be able to get the most out of his players. Nick Saban saw the writing on the wall, and this is part of that writing on the wall. And I don't blame them for walking away, and why a lot of guys are going to walk away. If you're going to coach in college, you might as well go coach in the pros because you're dealing with a lot of that same dynamic. And in college, it's still a bit of that wild, wild west mentality where money's just going out everywhere, and you've got the haves and the have-nots. And for Loxley, I think he explained it beautifully, but I think the reality, the harsh reality is you could try to police this stuff and figure out how to make it work. I just think for a lot of these coaches, it's going to be a struggle.
Well, I'll tell you this right now, and this doesn't necessarily reflect how I feel on the matter, but this sure as heck wasn't an issue when you weren't allowed to let anybody know that you got any benefits from anybody. That wasn't a problem back then, because back then word would get out of the locker room, and then then coach is going to get suspended, and then that Mustang's got to go back to the dealership. Yeah, I mean, we're in the grayest of gray areas when it comes to like college sports in general. And this isn't just a college football thing, right? Like Duke is almost definitely going through the same thing with their men's basketball team. I don't know. I don't know where we go. It seemed like there was a brief period, maybe 6, 8, 10 months ago, of legislation seemingly coming to bat that would require the institutions to pay the players directly and kind of outlaw
create
these
a
murky
salary
waters.
cap.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's the answer, because then there are always ways to circumvent it, right? I just don't think that. It feels like the toothpaste is out of the tube and people are kind of upset with the mess it made, but you can't really be upset with this. And I don't know, I guess the college coaches have the rights to quit or say this crap in the media or whatever.
I don't know if it's crap, it's real. I mean, it's a real problem. And how is a coach, with all those guys in that locker room, how do you command a locker room when you're going to have jealousy, not just because of playing time, but because somebody's getting more money than you?
I think that when you enter into the business of sports, and this is something that is becoming ever more true at every level of sport, you have to understand that your talent is going to forever be associated with a dollar amount. And if you choose to let that make you mad as an athlete rather than to motivate you to get better, that's your problem.
It's easier said than done. I could say, as somebody that's worked in this business for 30 years, God, I'm old. It exists in every dynamic. I always say sports media is sports without the uniforms. There's a lot of that petty jealousy that exists. And these coaches are in for it, man. It's going to be tough. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday, and that means David Aardsma is here, the former MLB reliever and closer. Lots to talk about with him from MLB. If you have not done so yet, a couple of reminders. First of all, we have the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast available Monday through Friday on all your favorite podcasting platforms. It is this show in its pure audio form, the way it was meant to be. Monday through Friday, 45 minutes, commercial-free. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, you name it. We are on every platform that you go to your podcasting for. So if you're looking for the show and just want to listen to it while you're driving to work, in the shower, at the gym, on the treadmill, laying in bed, whatever it may be, go and check out the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. In addition to that, you can watch this show on over 270 affiliates around the country, and that list is growing in the U.S. and Canada. You can also watch the show daily, and as a matter of fact, little pro tip, you can get it first over on Spotify early in the afternoon, and also over on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, available for you Monday through Friday. The show, again, commercial-free in its entirety. We also have SportsWrap Shorts, which are available over on that YouTube channel as well. The SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Go and check that out whenever you get a chance, and go and subscribe. It's free, and we would appreciate it. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, I tell you. Man, I hope it's not the end for Rich Hill. I hope he's getting more than one start. I don't know. He started for the Royals last night in a loss to the Chicago Cubs. The 45-year-old in his 21st Major League Baseball season, he acquitted himself nicely. You know, his numbers at AAA this year were like meh. Wasn't anything crazy. And I think with somebody like this, the numbers don't really matter. It's what you know he can do still at the Major League level. Rich Hill last night against one of the best teams in all of baseball in the Chicago Cubs. Again, 6-0 loss for the Royals in this game as they continue to try and battle for a wild card spot in the American League. But Rich Hill, 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, only 1 earned, 2 walks, 1 strikeout, 90 pitches. I mean, in a spot start after spending the year at AAA, where most people didn't even know you still were, for Rich Hill to do that, yeoman's work by the man. Congratulations to him. By the way, the Royals made 3 errors in this game. Back your guy up. I mean, come on. Rich Hill, fantastic. 21st Major League season, pitching for his 14th Major League Baseball team at the age of 45. Congratulations to Rich Hill on a fantastic start. And again, hopefully he gets another opportunity. I love the grind. As somebody who's grinded out a broadcasting career for 30 years, despite the efforts of some to make it shorter than that. I have so much respect for a guy like Rich Hill doing what he's doing. He's probably got enough money. Not that he's, made crazy ace money as a Major League Baseball pitcher. The guy doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the fame. He's pitching because he just still loves doing it. If you're doing it at 45, the work that goes into it. If you've ever seen David Ardsma on this show, hear him talk about the work that goes into it. For Rich Hill at 45 to still be out there doing what he loves, I just love it. Speaking of 45 and doing what you love, how about Peyton Stearns, 22 years old, losing to 45-year-old Venus Williams last night in Washington, D.C. Look at how packed that court was for this WTA event in the nation's capital. And look at Venus Williams at the age of 45 beating Peyton Stearns in straight sets last night. Oldest to win in like 20 years in the WTA tour. And she, you know what, man? As long as she got her health, she could be out there playing until she's 50. I mean, she is a physical juggernaut. She was still hitting serves last night. At 45 years old, she was hitting 110 mile per hour serves in this match. Look at her running around the court in phenomenal shape. And, look, I get it when we talk about the Williams sisters. Serena's always going to be the one you talk about first. But Serena's been retired for years now. And you've still got Venus out there, not just competing, but winning matches. Or in this case, a match. And who knows? She's going to go into the second round. She's playing against the 5th seed in the tournament. But look at that smile. How could you not love that? I mean, that is everything score 1 for the 40-year-olds. 45-year-old Venus Williams beating Peyton Stearns. And she'll get another match, and I'm sure it'll be packed out there in D.C. for her next match as well, however long this run goes for her. Always love seeing it. Congratulations to Venus Williams. And that's how we wrap up this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap. Thanks to Jason Cole for hanging out with us. Sam Yarnell as well. Again, Thursday, we'll have our man David Ardsma hanging out with us. talk Major League Baseball with him. And we'll see you then. I'm Jason Page. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap. Bye.